The webinar. We are so excited that you can join us today, and we're excited to tell you more about just applying to dental school and more about the Harvard School of Dental Medicine. So, thank you for your patience as we await everyone to fully come on to the webinar. Thank you. Excellent. So my name is Martha Vidrine, and I work at Harvard School of Dental Medicine in admissions. And we are here surrounded by students and current administrators to talk about applying to dental school, and even more specifically here at the Harvard School of Dental Medicine. I take a moment to just go around the room where you'll hear more from each of our colleagues here. Once again, I'm Martha in admissions, and then Sarah, if you can introduce yourself, please.
Thanks, Martha. Hi, everybody. My name is Sarah Troy Petrakis, and I'm the Director of Admissions. Thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Excellent. Amy?
Hi, everyone. I'm Amy. I'm from Raleigh, North Carolina. I'm currently I'm class of 2026, so rising D4, and I graduated undergrad from Wellesley.
Thank you, Amy. Welcome. And Amaya?
Hi everyone, my name is Amaya. Like Amy, I'm a rising D4. I'm from Virginia Beach, Virginia, and I graduated from Cornell in May of 2022.
Excellent. Thank you, Maya. And Alyssa?
My name is Alyssa. I'm originally from Stuart, Florida. I am class of 2028, so currently a D1, but a rising D2. I did my undergraduate at Harvard.
All right, excellent. Thank you, Alyssa. Welcome. And then our colleague Ariel. Would you like to just say a few words?
Hello, my name is Ariel Heim, and I am the program coordinator for diversity, equity, and inclusion at Harvard School of Dental Medicine, and I'm very happy to host you all today.
Thank you, Ariel. And once again, we are excited that you all can be with us today. We're going to do our best to tell you a little bit more about the application process, as well as some just specific student life, curriculum, research, and those kinds of things here at the Harvard School of Dental Medicine. What we're going to do today, we're going to start with a presentation from Sarah, who is our Director of Admissions. Afterwards, we'll hear from our students on the panel about their experience here at HSDM. And then later, if we have some time, we'll also open it up to some questions and answers at the end of the session. So for now, thank you for your patience, and we will now yield the floor to Sarah. Thank you.
Thank you, Martha. Let me just pull up my slides here. Let's see. Here we go. It's hard to see with all the boxes covering it, but luckily I know it pretty well. Hi, everybody. You're probably at different points in the application cycle, so I'll speak a little bit broadly and also more specifically. But for those of you that are thinking of applying to dental school, usually applicants will take their DAT after they've taken their the hard sciences, the biology, chemistry, and organic chemistry. Although it's very typical to see physics as an outstanding requirement when they apply, English. But these are the three that you really ought to get in. Most will take it a year before they want to go to dental school, and most will do so after the third year of college, unless you're doing a post-bac and then in a gap year, which has become very, very common, and that can make the timing different. A challenge for admissions this cycle, it's always nice to have things change a little bit. We have a new DAT scoring cycle that we're getting used to. One feature of this new DAT is that candidates can no longer print out unofficial scores and send them to the schools as placeholders like they used to be able to do. Now, you and we have to wait the 3 weeks or so for them to officially arrive. The good news is that applies to everybody, and we'll just take it as it comes. We encourage you to submit a completed application as early as possible. You really want to maximize the number of interviews you get during the fall semester before the first decisions come out. This year, they'll be released on December 15, and then they're released on a rolling basis after that. We received the bulk of our completed applications by the end of July, I'd say. If you apply complete in August, September, October, doesn't mean you're not going to get into dental school. It just means that you're going to be interviewing later, and maybe you'll be getting your offers in January and February. So just keep that in mind. All right. You'll probably be familiar with this, but just in case. So ADEA.org, if you go to prospective students and future dentists, It has information on the dental school curriculum, important dates, a quick guide for applicants, school-specific deadlines, and videos of students in dental school telling you about their stories that are all very helpful and foundational as you get to know more about dentistry as a career. So make sure you check that out. Application requirements tend to be pretty similar from school to school, but not exact. So you have to keep careful track. Our online application, we require the application, the transcripts, letter of recommendation, which I'll go into more detail next, a statement of purpose, which I'll also go into more detail about in another slide. We accept the US or Canadian DAT scores, and then we have an $80 application processing fee that we waive for students in some categories, and you can see if you fall into one of those categories. In terms of our letters of recommendation, just to show you what's different, we require one committee letter, which is sufficient by itself, or 3 individual letters. 2 need to be from faculty in the sciences, biology, chemistry, physics related courses. And the third letter of recommendation could be from a faculty member of your choosing, and also the letters from the science professors can also be from PI. Maybe you worked in someone's lab and they oversaw your research. That would also count. There's also a 4th slot in the application, which is optional. Most students will submit, or candidates rather, hopefully students, a letter from someone that they shadowed. And we'll accept anything except for personal recommendations because they just don't really help us too much. Letters from a pastor, a family friend, that type of thing. Try to steer clear of. Excuse me. And when you ask for your letters of recommendation, if you're doing 3 individual letters, make sure that the recommender knows enough about you that they can write a letter that not just says that you're great, she's great, but why you're great, to be able to provide specific examples to back that up that will help us get to know you as a person. So examples around your interpersonal skills, maybe teamwork, leadership, something like that. And we know it can be really tricky at some schools that have really big classes, and we know the schools that have giant classes, and it may be harder for you to get really personal letters of recommendation, but do your best to make their job a little bit easier because it'll help you. You also might want to consider the experience of the faculty recommender. So if you have a choice between asking for a recommendation from like a full faculty member versus a lecturer, and they both know you equally as well and will write similar letters of recommendation, go with the more senior faculty member because they have more experience, and sometimes what they have to say can carry a little bit more weight. But the most important thing is that the recommender knows you and is able to write a thoughtful letter that kind of is above everything else. All right, your personal statement or your essay. Really allow your personality to come through. We enjoy reading these. It's one of the few places where we can get to know, sort of get a sense of you as a person. We encourage you to be really genuine and authentic. We want you to explain your personal path to dentistry, but we also want to know what you're most passionate about. And some applicants stick in my mind, like there are a couple that they're really good at fly fishing and tan tying flies, which they brought some flies to the interview and showed me. And I don't know anything about that, but it's unique, it's interesting, it's what they're passionate about, and we're not looking for cookie cutter students. We want to know what makes you unique. And this may seem obvious, but the more you review your essay to make it great, the more familiar it will become and harder for you to really actually change it to make it better. So you need fresh pairs of eyes. So we encourage you to have a couple of fresh pairs of eyes throughout that process to make sure that you have a cohesive essay that will be enjoyable to read. All right, this is a very busy slide, sorry, but we changed our prerequisite courses a little bit this past cycle to align them more with the medical school because our students spend their first year at Harvard Medical School, and we wanted to make sure that they were as equally prepared as the Harvard Medical School students. So we're less focused on credits now and more focused on content and topics. So for biology, for instance, you should make sure to have studied cellular and molecular aspects in your coursework. You want to have a year of lab experience. AP credits can be used to satisfy, I'm sorry, move that over. You can't use AP credits to meet the biology requirements, but if you've taken upper level biology courses, the upper level biology courses can be used to meet the biology requirement. Chemistry, we're looking for a 2-year chemistry sequence. Most cases, it's a sequence at the schools that have revised their curriculum to make it more like to meet the med school requirements. And this would include inorganic chemistry, organic chemistry, biochemistry, and some lab experience. So it's not super specific. Most notably, we no longer have a math requirement. We used to require 1 year of math, a semester of calculus and biostatistics, or 2 semesters of calculus. And now that these are just recommended, not required, which might be a relief to you all. So there's quite a bit of detail here. On this next slide, I've listed the link where you can read through this, because there are also additional details, important notes that you'll want to check out in addition to this table. So we hope you find that helpful. It's our first year going through with it, and let us know if you have questions about it. All right, I already mentioned the complete your application early. I most frequently see typos when applicants are describing their experiences. There's like a brief description area, which actually doesn't seem to have a word limit, because some students will put an essay in there and it fits. So make sure that you're checking the grammar and the typos in those particular areas, but also use those areas to your advantage to tell us more about the experience if you have something to share. There's an opportunity to do that there. If you have any disciplinary issues, usually there's an explanation in the application, but if there's more that you feel that we should know, email us. We'd be happy to link it with your application so that the admissions committee has the full picture of whatever it is you want to make sure we're aware of. And if you have any W's on your transcript, which are pretty common, I guess we considered that you'd withdrawn from the course because you weren't doing as well as you hoped, and then retook it. But if that's not the case, if you withdrew not because you were going to fail, but because some other reason, things going on personally, things you want us to know about, again, shoot us an email. We'll show you the email address at the end, and let us know about it. And we'll put it with your application and provide just a little bigger picture for us. One thing that's different about our application is we don't require a minimum number of shadowing hours. Most schools seem to require about 100, maybe more. So we always see shadowing hours. Instead, what we much prefer is that you have taken an opportunity to explore all the pre-health professions and come to a real educated and thoughtful decision about dentistry as a career. That's really the goal, and that will just help you. All right, our interview process. It's different at every school. I've heard all sorts of different formats, from speed dating type formats, you name it. Ours is pretty personal. Everyone has a first round. Everyone that's invited to interview. This past year, I think we had 138 students interview overall. And the first interview was virtual for everybody to sort of level the playing field. Not everyone will be invited to the second interview, but most will. And if you are, you'll be able to choose between a virtual interview or an in-person interview. And if you have both interviews virtually, you can come for a visit day once you're accepted, so that you can make a decision about your admission, about where to go to school, having seen the campus and met with students, which is a nice thing. We have a Canvas page that we'll give you access to, which is basically the folder of materials we used to hand out, because I'm old enough, they used to be a folder. Now that's all digital, and you have access to that. And the first round would consist of a 1-hour orientation with a 4th-year student, which has been great, and Martha and me. And then you'll have one conversational interview with a member of the admissions committee. And the admissions committee is comprised of current faculty, DMD alums, 4th-year students, which is a little unusual, and the director of admissions, me. Those of you that are invited to for the second round and for a second interview, which would be on a different date. You would have another 45-minute one-on-one interview with a member of the admissions committee. And you'd also participate in a virtual panel with current students and a virtual financial aid overview. Those two pieces are virtual for everyone, regardless of whether you interview in person or virtually. So that's what the interview days consist of. All right, why choose HSDM? So we really consider dentistry a specialty of medicine. The mouth is in the body, it's not in a stick. As I mentioned, you spend your first year at HMS completely integrated, held to the same standards. You'll have friends who are dental students, who are medical students. It's all the same. It's a very collaborative and supportive community. I think in part, particularly when they come back to the dental school, because we're so small, we're I think the smallest dental school in the country. We really have an opportunity to get you well. And the culture is very community focused, family-like, I'd even say, but I don't want to sound corny. It's a nice place to be. It's a nice place to be yourself, which I appreciate. Pass-fail grading, which is one of the things the students love the most about the program, because it eliminates the competition and allows you to be each other's cheerleaders, which is so nice. It's really nice to see every year. We offer primarily flipped classes the first year at the medical school with case-based collaborative learning. I'm sure the students may touch on this if you would like to know more, but working in small groups to solve cases, and you've prepared the material the day ahead of time. So you know a little bit about it. And if you're somebody who would prefer to sit in class and take notes in the back of the room, this might not be for you, but it's a very highly collaborative, engaged opportunity to learn the material more deeply and from different perspectives. And our students, there's some research that shows that you remember it better in a flipped classroom than just taking notes. You don't need to go into a residency program if you attend HSDM, but it is an option, and we have pretty much 100% placement every year into residency programs, which is pretty unusual, and attracts students that are interested in that. But you don't have to. You can certainly go into private practice if that's what you prefer too. We offer interprofessional education, so you're in the teaching practice with, you'll have a nurse practitioner, dentist, doctor, someone from the Mass College of Pharmacy across the street, really learning about different cases from different perspectives and how it all kind of fits together. It's a real opportunity to tailor your experience at HSDM because it's so small and there's so much mentoring. Your faculty mentors, we call them society directors, will get to know you really, really well. And in fact, eventually they write your letter of recommendation for residency, if that's what you want to do. And they're able to really tell the place you're applying to, not just why you're great, but who you are as a person, and why you'd be a good fit for the program. And I think it makes a big difference. We have integrated longitudinal courses. I know the curriculum's changed slightly over the year, but for the most part, it's always been revolving around body systems. So you're learning about multiple subjects at once, not just physics, not just biology all together. And then the mentoring, as I mentioned, the society directors. I think that's the last one. It's covered up a little bit. Real quick, we offer all need-based grants, financial aid, for the most part, just for U.S. citizens or permanent residents. Mr. Gardner, his financial aid manual is here. I'll have to close the space there between program and financial aid. It's very detailed, and should answer all your questions, but if it doesn't, he encourages you, even if you don't end up applying to HSDM, to write him. It's unusual to have a financial aid person that's just dedicated to helping the students with financial aid, and he's happy to help. This is our contact information, and thank you for having me. I'm now going to, in the interest of time, turn this quickly back to Martha. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sarah, and thank you for all the information you've given us. So we are excited as well to have some of our current students join us today for the webinar. So we invite them to come back online so we can hear a little bit more about them and their experience. Apologies as I fix my glasses. Yay. Hey, so welcome back, Amy, Alyssa, and Amaya. We would love to hear from each of you in terms of like, let's start with two basic questions. Why dentistry and why HSDM? And who would like to begin?
I can go first. So I'll start with why dentistry. So I always knew that I wanted to work in healthcare, but I wanted something that was a little bit more flexible. And I really like the business aspect of dentistry. And so I decided to go into an office and just say like, hey, can I shadow? And I did. And my mentor was wonderful, and I really fell in love with dentistry. My mom also was a dental assistant, so I had some minimal exposure growing up. Um, but yeah, so I've wanted to do dentistry since I was like a teenager. Why HSDM? When I interviewed, I absolutely loved the people. I really think our community is so special. And so after obviously the pass fail curriculum, the medical school integration is very, very nice. But honestly, what sold it for me was the people. We have a really great community here. So that's ultimately why I ended up choosing it.
Thanks, Amaya. I appreciate it.
I can go.
Sure.
So for my why dentistry is I grew up in a family of scientists, so I feel like I was always immersed in that type of environment, but I didn't really foresee myself doing like lab bench work. And I felt like the results were very like in the future down the line, I couldn't really see them. So I wanted a profession that was very tangible. And just from my personal experiences at the dentist's office, I spent a lot of time there when I was younger. It kind of felt like my playground. So I wanted to be able to give back to that community and be able to provide for future patients the way that my pediatric dentist did for me. And then my why HSDM, also not going to harp on the pass fail curriculum and the small class size that like makes HSDM so unique and so incredible. For me, it's also because I graduated from Wellesley and it was a small liberal arts college. And so I wanted to kind of continue that and be able to stay in the Boston area. But then because I had all of that one-on-one support from my faculty throughout undergrad, I felt like not only would the small class size at HSDM help with that, but also we are split into what we call societies, which are smaller subsets within the 35 of us, where we each have one mentor, one society director, faculty member who oversees around 8 to 9 of us. And I felt like that was kind of like the one-on-one support that I also really wanted in my dental education.
Awesome. Thank you. And Alyssa.
Hi. I think my path to dentistry was rather circuitous. So for those of you who don't have kind of like a straightforward path, I can definitely relate to that. I majored in history in college, and I just got really fascinated by global health, and that became global oral health. And that kind of led me to dentistry. I didn't have any dentists in my family, so I didn't really get too much exposure besides my pediatric dentist growing up. But I always kind of knew I wanted to go into healthcare. I worked as an EMT in college, and I just really loved clinical-based healthcare. So I think that's kind of how I ended up where I am. Um, why HSDM specifically? Um, Again, pass fail, small class size, medical school integration. These are things that are quintessential to the HSDM experience. But in addition to that, I really appreciate the interconnectedness of the university. I feel as though schools have a lot of crosstalk. If you come to visit the HSDM campus, you'll see that we're on the Longwood campus, which is situated between the School of Public Health and Medical School and the dental school. And some of my favorite mentors are like very much integrated in both of the other schools. So I just really love how kind of collaborative the university is, especially if you want to do some interdisciplinary training like I do.
Awesome. Thank you. Hey, Amaya, let's go back to you a little bit. I know you touched on it, the small class size. I know you also touched on a little bit of uh the grading system. But can you speak a little bit more to that? What are the benefits of a small class size? Why was that exciting to you? And then how would you describe the grading system here?
So initially, I was actually very intimidated by the class size, being so small. I went to Cornell, which has a very, it's actually a very large school. So I was a little bit intimidated by the class size, and it's come to be one of my most favorite things about the school. So where each class is roughly 35 students, as Amy mentioned, you do get broken down into smaller cohorts as well called societies. And then you have a society director who is like your point person, and you tend to work in your society on like tutorial cases and things like that. But yeah, so we're approximately 35 in your second year. You sometimes get a couple more students through the advanced standing program, which I also love. But it really is just the most amazing thing because all of us feel like family. You know everybody in your class and you know them well, and I think that that's really special. Another thing too is the faculty really know you well. So even if faculty realize you're having like an off day, they're even able to tell that like they know you that well. And I think that that's such a nice environment to sort of go through this journey in. So that's in regards to the class size. And then what was remind me the second part?
The grading.
The grading system. Oh, my favorite. So the grading system is completely pass fail. So you do ultimately get a score when you have a test, but there's a set passing score. And then if you're above that, you pass. If you're below that, there's marginal passes, etc. But it has absolutely shaped my life. Like I remember being am I freezing up? A little bit? No? Okay. So I remember being so stressed about grades in college. And so to be able to be in an environment where the focus is really on learning as opposed to a grade has really shifted things for me and how I look at school. So school is no longer this super stressful thing to me. Sometimes patients cause you stress or, you have a test coming up, but overall, it's really just like the most amazing thing to whether you get a 100 or you get a 70, it's the same score. And so the focus is really on learning as opposed to a grade. We're also not ranked, which is really nice. And I think that the pass fail and no rank has allowed us to curate such a really supportive environment. There's really honestly like no competition amongst people. Everyone's super helpful in clinic and in like didactic coursework as well. So yeah, so pass fail, no rank, wonderful. It's awesome.
Thank you, Maya. Thank you. Amy, you are here to become an oral health professional. Can you talk a little bit about how a clinical experience is smattered out from your first year, second year, third year, and fourth year? And in particular, when you actually get into the clinic in third or fourth years, how do you find patients? Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, definitely. So even though we spend our first years in the medical school, every other Wednesday, first years are able to spend half of a day in clinic and shadowing a fourth year provider. And so that was a really great entryway and to be able to take some time away from just like the medical school curriculum and being able to be immersed in the dental school setting. And at the same time, through my time, just like being a first year and shadowing a fourth year provider or third year provider, I was able to also be able to get to meet people outside of my cohort and also be able to meet the mentors and people that I would look up to in clinic later on. And then in second year, you start in dental school. Mainly, a lot of it is didactics, but the way that clinic is structured in that time is you're not providing direct patient care, but you do shadow and go through the different specialties. So some of the specialties we have here in-house at Harvard, which include some of which include orthodontics, periodontics, and then other times for some of the specialties that are not here on our Longwood campus, we get sent to MGH for oral surgery, BCH for pediatrics, and so you kind of get to be able to explore all the different specialties and get to kind of shadow and assist with the residents there so you can get a sense of if you can see yourself working with that population, doing the procedures that they're doing. But it kind of just gives you a nice overview of what to expect when you go into clinic as well. And then third year is, or end of second year, beginning of third year is when you first get into clinic and for the very first time, which is it's such a fun time. And kind of going back to what Amaya was saying, right? It's like we're super collaborative, and what makes clinic so fun is just being able to not only provide care for our own patients, but then being able to be that helping hand for our classmates when they're in times of need as well. So patient care is super fun, and you start off by just like you spend half a day seeing a patient. And the way we get patients at HSDM here, it's actually the school really does look out for us. We do have certain requirements of procedures that we need to complete by graduation, but some of the ways that students get patients, generally it's given to us by the school. So some of our upperclassmen, they graduate, and so the patients that still need to have their care completed are passed down to us. And then for others of us, new patients who are coming in through the door, if they want to be seen by a student provider, then we also get assigned those patients as well. And then other ways that you can also recruit your own patients if you do know, friends or family in the area that would like to seek care, an Uber driver who wants care, or just anyone on the streets of Boston that would like to receive dental care. You also have that capability of balancing your schedule out with bringing your own set of patients. So there's a lot of variety in ways that you can make up your patient pool here, but I think that variety also kind of lends its beauty to like the institution that we go to, and being able to, have the freedom to be able to look for our own patients, but at the same time not being too super stressed if we don't have the patient pool, and the school would be able to provide that.
Great. Thank you, Amy. Appreciate that. Alyssa, you are completing your first year, going into your second year. We're excited for you. Can you share a little bit about your first year, the medical school experience, and do you see that as a collaborative space? How do you think that will impact your experience as a future oral health professional?
I think overall, I've had like a great experience at the medical school. Um, Essentially, the entire dental school is merged within the medical school. We take all of our classes together. We're about 200 students. You're kind of split up into 4 societies, kind of like homerooms that Amy mentioned earlier. It's definitely a very collaborative space. The curriculum style is flipped classroom. So it's a very or essentially, for those of you who may not know, flipped classroom is when you would study a topic the night before, you would go into class the next day, and class would be more of a problem-solving, collaborative-based atmosphere, where professors would ask you application type questions to make sure that you really understand the information that you studied the night before. I found that to be like a great collaborative experience. You sit in tables of 4, but you switch your tables every few weeks and you're kind of randomly assigned to a table. So it's a great opportunity to get to know everyone in your society very well. There are opportunities to get to know students outside of your society as well, because we take some shorter term classes where it's not necessarily confined to just your society. I think overall it's a great collaborative experience. I teach a lot of my med school friends about dentistry, and they teach me about why they like medicine. And I think it's just a great way to become a more well-rounded dentist, essentially.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you. So, Harvard School of Dental Medicine, we do have a lot of emphasis on research, but research is not required. But, Maya, can you tell us a little bit more about how we do research here and some of the research opportunities at HSDM?
Yeah, so we do have a research requirement that we need to complete before we graduate. I would say that so starting in your first-ish year, we have a class where we start going over like research methods and things like that. And the teacher helps you to start reaching out to faculty members of research that you're interested in. And so it's kind of a structured thing. We also have like monthly research journals where we keep this professor like up to date on like what we're doing. But what I really want to talk about is the opportunities at Harvard. I genuinely feel like anything that I would want to research, it's here. And I would feel supported in that. It's really amazing to be connected to Boston Children's Hospital, or you'll hear us refer to it as BCH, or Mass General, which we call MGH. So even just beyond the faculty that's available to you at, Harvard Dental, you are able to go beyond to the hospitals around, or the medical school, or the undergrad campus. It's really what you make of it. And for me, I'm involved in a lot of research projects on a lot of different areas of my interest. And I personally don't want to do wet lab research, and that's not required. The research project is what you make of it. So if you've never really done research in undergrad or had exposure to that, don't worry. There's people in my class that never had research in undergrad and they still felt very supported and are doing one, if not multiple projects now.
Great. Thank you so much. Um, Amy, being a dental student is very busy, but are there opportunities to do things outside, extracurricular opportunities, ways to serve the community? Could you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yes, definitely dental school is a very challenging time and you will have to be wearing a lot of hats at a lot of different times, but we do with the pass-fail curriculum, we also know how to have fun. And so one of the ways that we like to do that is through community service. And so there are a lot of different opportunities to be able to get involved with the various communities in the Boston area, greater Boston area, or even, for example, like there's student groups who go out to Martha's Vineyard to provide care for patients as well. So something that I'm passionate about and something that I'm also involved with is Action, which is a a completely student-run pediatric clinic that is functions once a month. And so it's a core group of coordinators. We run the clinic and we provide care for underserved populations in the Cambridge area, primarily pediatric patients who are on Mass Health. And so that's a really great opportunity for us to be able to take our dental skills from Boston and then kind of go across the river to Cambridge and to be able to provide care for children there. And I will also say, not aside from just being able to provide direct patient care through dentistry, there's also so many other opportunities that we're afforded with just because we are affiliated with the medical school as well. So there's plenty of opportunities that sometimes like the medical students are organizing, and plenty of opportunities to be involved with those as well. Some of which that I'm also involved with include like going to the homeless shelter in Cambridge, so near the undergrad. And so those are different ways that you can get involved doing dentistry, but also being able to provide for the community in other ways as well.
Thank you, Amy. Thanks. And speaking of getting connected, Alyssa, can you tell us a little bit about what about for those who might be interested in public health or global contacts in using their dental skills?
Yes, global health and public health is kind of what drew me to dentistry, and so I'm always seeking opportunities to get involved in spaces like such. We are housed like physically right next to the School of Public Health. And you do have the opportunity as a student to cross-register in classes that are offered at other schools across Harvard. So some students who are more business-oriented may choose to take a class or two at HBS or the business school, which is on a different campus. But I'm totally on board with the opportunity to take a class at the School of Public Health since it's literally right next to us. There are a lot of professors who work in the space of dental public health as well. Um, and so Harvard actually offers a dental public health residency program. And so you can work with both residents and professors who are kind of solely focused on global health and public health opportunities within dentistry. Um, and there are a lot of different opportunities that you can apply to through various programs during your time here. I have friends who this summer are going to Costa Rica, Rwanda, China, and these are all opportunities that are being funded by school. And these are just opportunities that they came across, they were able to apply to, and now they're able to practice global dentistry abroad.
Great. Thank you, Alyssa. If we could stay with you actually just for a moment with we had a lot of questions in regards to application advice, and I'd like to pose this question to you. As people are preparing their applications, perhaps they're in the process or in the future. One question that came up popularly was how did you decide what was most important to include when writing your personal statement? And we'll stay with you, Alyssa.
Um, just in case if you're struggling with your personal statement, we've all been there and you will totally get through it. Um, I think since I had like a non-traditional path to dentistry, it was easiest for me to focus on my kind of unique path. I worked as a bioethicist and got my master's in bioethics before deciding to enter into dental school. And so I was able to use my personal statement as an opportunity to explain why I decided to pursue this degree first, why I wanted to study dental bioethics before starting dental school. There are lots of students who take different paths throughout their gap years or gap semesters who might want to speak to that experience. I think it's the perfect opportunity to kind of explain these unique facets of yourself that you don't get to in the short essay responses for the activities that you partake in. I think even if you haven't taken gap years, a lot of my colleagues haven't. Um, they found it to be a great opportunity to speak to something really unique about themselves that they wanted to share. I'd recommend that those of you who are creative writers to use this as a creative opportunity to express yourself, perhaps sharing an anecdote or a story and kind of explaining what you learned about it, about yourself, about your path to dentistry. It's really just a brilliant opportunity to showcase the unique parts of yourself. And here at HSDM, I do have to say my classmates are like very diverse and very unique. So it would probably be a great thing to be able to showcase in a personal statement.
All right. Thank you. Amaya, let's go to you. People are maybe still considering dentistry or still trying to figure out ways that they can either get shadowing hours or get to know the profession more. Can you share or give any advice in terms of how people can find clinical experience so they can understand dentistry more?
Sure. So I briefly mentioned before, my mentor. I one day I've driven past this office all my whole time in high school, and one day I said, I'm just gonna go in and I'm gonna ask if they would let me shadow. And I did, and he said yes, and that was that. So I think for people that are struggling with, maybe if you don't already have a connection to the dental field, which is very common amongst, like my classmates too, no, nobody has connections to the dental field prior to this. Is just to go ask. The worst thing they can do is say no, but a lot of providers are actually really interested in teaching students. I think like I've since noticed like personalities of dentists, like they love teaching. And so just don't be afraid to ask. So if you've been driving past this office, and you're like, man, I really need shadowing, just go in and ask. And I think it's good. I did most of my shadowing with general dentists. I think it's also good to get exposed to a little bit of specialists, but like if that's not something that's accessible to you, it's not a requirement whatsoever. Um, and I also think it's beneficial to shadow multiple offices as opposed to just one if you can, because it's really nice to be able to see how different people practice. And then you can bring that experience into when you're interviewing as well to see different things. But yeah, so my recommendation is, if you happen to have a family friend who's a dentist, sure, shadow them, but don't be afraid to go in and ask or call or email. People are usually very nice and very welcoming.
Great. Thank you. And Amy, I know you've had an opportunity to work with a lot of pre-dents, and as a lot of people are considering applying to HSDM or might be in the process of of applying, do you have any advice for those who are in process?
Yes. So my biggest piece of advice is to just pursue your passions. I think with applying to dental school or applying to anything in general, we like to just see that you are super excited about something and you're super committed to something for the long time, as opposed to feeling like you're checking a box simply to be able to apply to dental school. So I would just say, just take the time to like pursue your hobbies. Like for me, that looked like when in undergrad, knew I wanted to go to dental school, and then so I kind of thought, oh, like I feel like everyone who goes to dental school majors in something that's in STEM, and so I felt like, oh, like maybe I shouldn't major in German, which was my second major. But I felt like that was honestly the best decision that I made because I really, really felt like having a second major in German and being able to take those classes during undergrad really helped give me not only one like balance in my schedule and balance in, who I would become as a future dentist, but also I feel like it just gave me so much more perspective on how I want to see and spend my time outside of dentistry and outside of the sciences as well. So I would just say also like another way that I also pursued a lot of research opportunities in undergrad, not at all related to dentistry. And I think that's also totally okay, right? We talked a lot about research opportunities and how at Harvard, you can pursue so many different routes when it comes to research. But I think the same holds true in undergrad as well. You don't have to necessarily do wet lab research. You don't have to do research in chemistry or biology. But if you're a psych major and you really want to do research in psychology, or if you are I don't know, an arts major and want to do one of your passion projects, doing art or music, I think all of those, speak to who you are and kind of are like fundamental parts of who you are as a person. And I think just showing your authentic self, it will come through on your application. And so I think it would be incredible if you just continue to do the things that bring you joy and give you happiness, because over time, those are the things that we really appreciate. And like Alyssa mentioned, our classes are like, even Amaya and my class, were like so diverse in all of our different interests. And I think that's what kind of makes our class always so fun. And to be able to form that type of community that we love to have here.
Great. Thank you, Amy. Great. Before I welcome back Sarah, the Director of Admissions, to our chat here, we're going to try to answer a few more questions. We have several, 100 plus, that have come in through the Q&A, and I think some of it have already been answered, but we'll try to get back to those. But let me also say that we are welcome your questions as well. To feel free to email us on our DMD email. So it's pretty long, but it's also on our website, all over our website, but it's HSDM underscore DMD underscore admissions at hsdm.harvard.edu. And we'll put that in the chat for you in just a little bit in case you have some questions that we are not able to answer during this webinar. So in the meantime, Sarah, can we have you back? And there are some questions in regards to some specific questions regarding admissions and processes. One of the questions is just the DAT. We know that they've moved now to a 3-digit scoring, but people are just curious. Are the new or the highest, the newest DAT scores or the highest DAT scores taken or reviewed? Do you have any sense of that?
Are the newest or well, we see all the DAT scores. If we were to report what your DAT scores were for a survey, we do lots of surveys, we'd be looking at your higher scores from each test that you've taken. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, and just in general, I'll put in because I do a lot of the processing as well. We see all the scores. So it's not a question of taking the worst or the last. We see them all. So that all that was going to inform the review committee's information in regards to each and every applicant. Okay. One question did come up. Somebody is asking that they're taking their DAT in August. Is that too late?
Too late to complete an application to apply?
To apply for the cycle? Is that considered too late in the cycle?
No, it just means that you're going to get interview invitations later. Maybe if it's not, maybe in late fall and interview maybe December, January. So it'll just take a little bit longer, but there's always still seats available in the class.
Okay. Awesome. And you had mentioned earlier that we have updated our prerequisites. And can you talk a little bit about something like biology where AP credits cannot be used to satisfy the requirement? And how can we, if we do have AP credits, um, what can we do, or what is it necessary for us to do?
You would take, we would accept upper level biology classes in place of the the AP courses. So we'd be looking for courses where you had the cellular and molecular biology subjects covered, because you'll need that.
Excellent. And what about microbiology or cell biology? Is that a requirement?
Cellular biology topics, having knowledge about that is important. I don't think we focus, microbiology used to be a recommended course for us, but it's not specifically required anymore.
Great, thank you. And then also the writing has changed. Writing intensive courses, what if it's in a subject that's not in the English department, for example?
That's fine. And we're kind of getting used to this new writing requirement that's kind of specific that the medical school adopted. So we'll be finding our way a little bit this year. But if you have a writing intensive course in a non-English department, that's fine. We don't really need to know about it until after you've been accepted and we're looking to make sure you've met the prerequisites. At that point, we may ask you for a description of the course that you're using to fulfill the English requirement to see if there really was a lot of writing. And if you've done a few papers and it's certainly fine to be in any department.
Excellent. Thank you. And you had mentioned earlier if people have some more information about their application, for example, a W on their transcript or
Mhm.
some sort of notification on their application. You do welcome letters of explanation, and those can be sent directly to our admissions office. Again, HSDM underscore DMD underscore admissions at hsdm.harvard.edu. It is on our website, but later on I will make sure to add that in the chat. Excellent. And let's just ask one other question to you, Sarah, in just in general. Can you talk a little bit about holistic review of the application? Can you share a little bit about what you mean by that?
Yeah, holistic is missing the W in front, but it's really holistic. You read and consider the whole application. So for me, as an application reader, what I do is I read through um, the whole application just to get a feel for it. And then I go back and I read it a second time to sort of fill in the detailed parts of it. And when you do that, you get a real sense of, usually a sense of the person, like the personality, what the person's like, much more so than you can if you're just using DAT or GPA cutoffs to decide who to interview. So when you have holistic review, I think the idea is that if you have something that you didn't do as well, and it might be balanced out by another strength in your favor. And that's what you really want to do is balance it in your favor as best you can.
Awesome. Thank you. Let's go back to the students. People would like to know what does day-to-day look day-to-day look like for a student? I guess it really depends on the year you're in at the school. Would anyone, Alyssa, since you're first year going to second year, can you give us an example of what your day-to-day might look like?
Sure, I can start us off. So you'll be taking classes at the medical school. You'll have classes Monday through Friday, between 8 and 12:30. Usually the latest classes will run is 12:30, due to the flipped classroom style, collaborative learning environment. You have like a large chunk of the day off, which is essentially like your free study time. And they kind of just expect you to be preparing for the next day's work. You'll usually have like a short assignment that's due before the next day, just on the content that you're reading about the night before. You'll take an anatomy lab that will be once a week and kind of goes throughout the year. You'll have a few lectures, but a majority of the class is kind of based in the um, homeroom style collaborative learning environment. And then for the summer of your first year, before you start your second year, you'll be taking your first classes at HSDM. So I'm taking 2 classes right now at HSDM. It's kind of our first foot that we're stepping into the dental school, so it's a really exciting experience. And then we go back to the medical school for a few more classes before we fully integrate into the dental school for our D2 curriculum.
Thank you. And let's see, between Amy and I, could somebody take second year and the other take the third year?
I could do second year. So second year is when you really dive into your dental curricula. So that looks like a lot of didactic coursework, on like dental biology, dental anatomy, things like that. And so you're really in class approximately like 8 to 5, 8 to 4, give or take. And so it's not flipped classroom anymore. It's purely lecture based. And yeah, so you're in class 8 to 5, and then starting in sort of the spring of your second year is when you really start getting into like preclinical. So we start drilling, and practicing doing fillings and things like that. So it moves very quick. But the first part of the like the fall is just purely didactic, then we do preclinic. So it's very different from the first year.
Okay. Thank you, Maya. And then Amy, what does third year look like? And fourth year, I guess, that's coming up for you too.
Yeah, so starting in third year, you are in clinic, but you're not done with classes yet at the beginning of third year. And so, again, we're still on the 8 to 5 schedule, but that time is tends to be split between class time and clinic time. And so, at the beginning of third year, we generally have three to 4 half days of clinic a week, and then all the times that we're not in clinic, we're taking class. And everything like that. And then we gradually once we're done with classes, we gradually phase out class time and phase in more and more clinic time. So like right now, Amaya and I have clinic, well, we're transitioning into fourth year. So now we're basically in clinic, 4 to 5 days a week. And then so in fourth year, when you get to fourth year, you're going to be full-time in clinic. And so and then there's also opportunities for us to be able to not only provide care for patients of our own here at in Boston in the Longwood area, but kind of going back to serving the underserved community. The school does assign us all to community health centers for externship sites to be able to do dental care out in the community in different areas to reach populations that we may not be able to see here. And so we get sent away for a 2-month community site externship in our fourth year. And then depending on what specialty you're doing, you can also spend upwards of a month, shadowing the specialty or doing some of the procedures that you're interested in those different specialty rotations as well. And so, yeah, in summary, I think like third year is you're still doing class and clinic, but then gradually you're working towards the full-time clinic schedule that you get in fourth year.
All right, thank you. We are coming to time for our webinar here. We want to thank each and every person who's been on the panel. I do want to answer something really quickly in terms of timeline for those who have applied or are considering applying. Generally speaking, we have once you've submitted an application for us, applications are now open. We hope that you do apply if you are thinking about it. And just about now throughout the summer and all the way through January, we're reviewing and screening applications applications and inviting people to interview. Typically, for interviews, we begin in September and they go through into February. And then, first wave of offers are started on December 15th of this year, and they typically go through into February or March sometimes until the class is full. We do not typically give up all of our seats on December 15th. We know that there are people still in process, still waiting to interview, and still who have applications complete. So we still spend time reading and reviewing applications. So we want to just make sure people have an opportunity for us to get to know them and them to get to know us. And so basically, it's not really until March of 2026 that we anticipate completing the new class of 2030. Can you believe it, y'all? Yay. So we have to close this evening. I want to say thank you to all of our panelists, Sarah, Troy Petrakos, who's our Director of Admissions, our students, Amy Lynn, Amaya Hibber, Alyssa Panton, and then our logistics person, Ariel Heim, for making this webinar possible. We thank you for joining us today. We thank you for your questions. And again, we weren't able to answer all of your questions, but again, in the chat, you should see our DMD email address. We welcome your questions there. We wish you well on this journey. Thank you for choosing the oral health profession. We need great people such as yourselves. The world needs you, and we look forward that your journey will be the best that you have, and just enjoy every moment of it. Thank you, everyone. Have a good night.